All right, we are now headed across town all the way from Burbank to Hollywood to get to the Prey event. And Prey is the new Predator movie that was released on Hulu. So we went from one Disney event to another Disney event. But they're on opposite ends of the city. So we're headed to the next one next. To the next one next. Yeah, that's right. The next one next. Are you ready? Let's go. Oh, hello, hi there. It's me, Todd. I'm in the studio, and today's sponsor is myself. The best way to support the channel is to subscribe to my Patreon, where not only do you become a member of the community, you get early access to the B-side videos as well as watch-throughs of movies or TV shows we are covering, and other movie reactions and commentaries from a filmmaker's perspective. And if that's out of your budget, no worries. Just hit that like button. It really does help out the channel with the algorithm. And of course, subscribe to get the latest videos delivered directly to you. Hit that notification bell to be alerted of the newest uploads. And please share these videos with your friends and family. And now, back to our regularly scheduled program. And if you missed my time at the Disney studio, click the card in the upper right and go back and check it out. Check out our fun time for The Secret Life of Elephants. All on the Disney lot. And then come back and watch Prey. All right, here we are. We're back here at Harmony Gold. Everyone is out front, lining up, getting ready to watch Prey. Who's seen Prey? Write it in the comments. Let me know. Let me know what you think. I have not actually watched it, as I was saying earlier. I'm very excited to actually watch it with a group of people.
Thank you very much. My name is Barry Jenkins. I'll be your MC and your moderator. Thank you for this presentation of Prey, this FYC screening of Prey. You're probably wondering, what the hell is the guy who directed Moonlight doing at a Prey screening? And Troy, I have nothing to do with this film. I just watched it and thought it was dope. And so when I heard this was happening and that there was a spot for a moderator, I was like, I have to do this. First of all, I want to say, if you have a cell phone or a fax machine, any of those machines, please turn them off or to silent. There's a very big screen behind me. It should be the only one illuminated during this presentation. So please respect Dan and all the wonderful artisans who made this film. Just real quick, because I know we got to get to the Q&A. Show of hands, who has not seen this film? Ooh, shit, this is a good screening, man. Wow. All right, second show of hands, who has not seen this film in a theater, in a movie theater? That should be every damn hand. Oh, I have seen this film at home. I have seen it in a theater, and oh my God, it absolutely rips. I mean, it rips. Actually, I should negative hype this. The film's okay. It's all right. It's cool. But I will say it's dope enough that there's a lot of people who will be here on stage afterwards for a Q&A moderated by yours truly. It's gonna be so many people. I'm gonna look at this list and tell you who it's gonna be. Dan, the director, Amber Midthunder, the star of the film, of course. We'll have the producer, the composer, the editor, the creature designer, and if you're familiar with the Predator films, this creature design, and this one is pretty unique and I would say iconic. Having seen it 3 times already, and the cinematographer. I wanted to shout all those people out. They'll all be up here on stage afterwards because the thing I love most about this film, of those people I just named, it's like 8 people. Only 2 of them have worked together before, and yet you watch this film and it's so absolutely cohesive. As a filmmaker who makes films nothing like this, I found it very humbling and inspiring, and I hope you do too. I'll see you afterwards. This is Prey. Enjoy the show. How you guys doing? Hey, I just want to thank all the people in here when he said, if it bleeds, we can kill it. Anybody who applauded, you are my friend. You were invited to the cookout. I appreciate you. We don't have well, actually, we have a good bit time, but nobody's here to hear me talk. So I want to introduce much of the crew and a very particular member of the cast of Prey. First, we have creature designer Alec Gillis. Please come out, Mr. Alec. The film's editor, Angela Catanzaro. Its cinematographer, Jeff Cutter. Producer, Jane Myers. Lead actress, Amber Midthunder. And the film's incredibly talented director, Dan Trachtenberg. So Dan, how in the hell did this awesome-ass film come to be?
First of all, I'd actually like to say thank you to you, because someone of your an Academy Award Best Picture, lending legitimacy to a movie like this is super dope. Not a lot of genre movies are up for consideration for potential awards or are impressive, in my mind, to someone who's made such awesome stuff like you. So thank you for doing this.
My pleasure.
And how it came together. So I was very inspired by Mad Max Fury Road when it came out, and particularly because it was a movie that told its story almost primarily through action. And I love the idea of also making something like that, but wondered if I could potentially make it not just a visceral experience, but an emotional one as well. So thought, well, maybe if we take the engine of an underdog story, of a sports movie, and fuse that with the action genre, then maybe we would really be a very stirring, rousing, moving experience. And thinking of an underdog movie, I started thinking about, well, what if the protagonist was from a culture that is also underrepresented, and Native American and particularly Comanche have been very slighted by Hollywood and are often relegated to playing the sidekick or the villain and never really the hero. And I think, I was just thinking about this today, like I'm actually very inspired by video games as much as movies in my formative years, and video games offer a very experiential, rather than passive experience that movies are, and I'm always thinking about how can a movie feel more experiential. And so there was something about linking, like you're rooting for a character and you're also rooting for an actor at the same time. Like the audience gets a very special, more experiential time, at the movies or at the TV screen or your iPad, yeah.
Or all of the above. Hey, there are no small screens, excuse me, there are no small movies, only small screens? I don't know what the hell I'm saying. This is a big-ass movie, that's awesome. The setup for the film is interesting. There have been a lot of movies made about the Predator. I think this one is very distinct, and you kind of got at it right away, which was there's a cultural dynamic to this film that I think maybe the other films in the series either lack or don't address in the way that this film does. Jane, you're one of the producers on the film, and you're also a descendant, you're a member of the Comanche Nation. Just talk to me about working with Dan and building the film and making sure that that cultural sort of dynamic, the gravitas of it, could play hand in hand with the genre elements of a Predator universe.
Absolutely, it's about time, I think. So, I'm Comanche and Blackfeet, and I'm enrolled at the Comanche Nation. So this has been incredible for me because when I read the script, Dan's amazing, and when he had the script sent to me, across the top it said all about Comanche. And we've never had not even a short film, any type of film in our Comanche language. So for us, it just kind of gave us a whole different dimension because as a Comanche, in movies, people see us ride in, we kill everything, we take what we want, we burn everything, and we ride back out. So, they don't see us as a people. But in this film, the way that it's written, it really embraces our culture. Really embraces the culture. And luckily, Dan picked me to work on this with him, and so I got to add some of my things, that happened, when I was a young woman, but also some cultural things that we had, and then also maybe a little few made up things. But still, but it's amazing to just, see that, because our whole Comanche people, were, when they saw it, they were so excited because they said, you brought us into reality. This brought us as real people, and people now see us that. And so they've always been saying, now they see us. They really see us. So that's amazing.
I have to say, the film was so damn immersive that when the mic started feeding back, it sounds like the Predator thing. So I was looking around. No bullshit. I was looking around a little bit. But I was trying to watch your face, Jade, and you just kept going, so I was like, okay, we're cool.
Because I'm Comanche and I'm not scared.
Exactly. Yeah, you know what, Amber's here, so we are safe, exactly. Amber, what is it like to step into the footsteps of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny Glover, I must say. Danny Glover did a good job in Predator too. When you got the script, when you got the call, when you first had your first conversation with Dan, what went through your mind, and what did you try to bring to this role?
Those are all very different things that happen. This did not happen at the same time. My first conversation with Dan was over a year, I think, before I even knew that this was a Predator film. So really all that I knew was kind of this character, and I knew that there was a movie being made by 20th Studios that was about a young Comanche woman. And I was very confused because studios normally don't really want anything to do with Native people in, time period movies. So I was very confused about that and a little suspicious. But it was really cool, and it was a really cool character, and I really connected with it right away. And there's this kind of thing that happens to me, I think, with characters where there's like this kind of special, magical ingredient that you can't make happen. It just happens. And sometimes I think no matter how much or how little I have a script or information about it, I call it like the Iron Man suit. It just kind of is something that clicks in, and it just fits in a way that I can't describe. And that was kind of the experience that I had with this, and then it was the same experience meeting Dan. We did like a callback over Skype or something, and just talking.
Pre-pandemic, so it was Skype.
We were ahead of the curve.
No Zoom then. Yeah.
But that was just, I think it just felt right away. Especially at the test when we finally got to meet in person and do this. We did a scene in Comanche. We did all of our scenes in English. We did them in Comanche, and then we had a really cool moment where Dan came up to me at the first scene, and he was like, "Listen, I have an idea, and it might be really awful," which immediately I'm excited by that kind of a thing. I'm like, okay, cool, what are we doing? And he was like, "It might be weird. If it doesn't work, that's fine. But I want you to do the whole scene, but don't do any of the dialogue. But do everything, but don't say a word." And I was like, okay, cool. And I asked a couple questions, and he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. And I did it, and he came back, and he didn't say anything, and I didn't say anything, and we just kind of looked at each other, and we both kind of nodded, and I think that was where we don't have to talk to each other a lot. We just have I don't think that, yeah, I know. It's okay, cool. And that was where that started. And so for me, everything felt right from the beginning. And then on top of that, the cultural element was super scary and super exciting. And I think for the whole process felt, safe wherever I was going. Even if I was scared, I still felt safe. Whether that was creatively or culturally or whatever that was. And especially, in the undertaking that is this movie, that was really, I think that's an irreplaceable experience.
I want to come to Jeff and Angela, the cinematographer and editor on the film. We're talking now about cultural stuff and all this stuff, which is very important. It's why I got emotional watching the film this time. I got to be honest with you. But it's also just it's a massive film that's also quite intimate. So Jeff, I want to talk about the visual approach to the film, working with Dan and some of the staging and things like that. We were talking about the camera backstage, and then Angela, when you get what I assume was just a mountain of footage, just the approach to slowly building out what became, I think, one of the best films that's been released last year. Just an awesome fucking film.
Yeah, I think for Dan and I, it was really important to kind of present, when we were scouting, and we shot a lot of the movie actually on First Nations lands, because you can see 360, it's beautiful and it's untouched. There's nothing, in the way. And really kind of wanted to respect the natural environment and not present it in a sort of slick Hollywood way. Wanted to sort of really feel as real as beautiful as possible, but also as real as possible, and not feel like we were forcing things and artificiality on it. So it was really like trying to find the most beautiful things in the most natural way, and that was sort of the foundation for the photography, where we didn't want it to be anything that would pull the audience out of the film, and where you're thinking like, oh, I'm sensing that's a fake Hollywood movie. We want it to be, as real as possible, so that the intimate stuff would not to be like dwarfed by the action, so that way you could, because ultimately it's like, if you don't care about the characters, then you're not going to care about the film, and all the big explosions and all that stuff, which is great. My favorite stuff is some of the action scenes, but none of that stuff matters if you don't care. And so I think that was the sort of foundation for what we wanted the film to kind of look like. And then, we just built everything from that, and tried to make it as exciting as possible, but never really trying to make anything stand out for its own sake.
Well, and Angela, for you, it's interesting hearing Jeff talk about the film that way, because as I watch it, especially watching it here with all these people, as a filmmaker, I'm feeling the room. And you guys really take your time at places to sort of progress from one stage to the next, from one set piece to the next. It's almost like, Dan brings Terrence Malick in just for a couple of days, Terry Malick does his thing, and then Dan comes back. Compliment to you, my friend.
If you only could hear with previs, with the giant set piece, me saying, but it's got to be like Malickian, I feel like a jackass saying that word, but so yeah,
well,
validating. Thank
the
you.
pace to me is perfect, just absolutely perfect. What was it like building the thing out, Angela?
We did explore. I mean, Dan, from the moment I met him, I think it was clear that he's somebody that appreciates editing and the power of editing and all of the magic that you can do in the cutting room, and really like exploring all the tools that we had in our quiver, to make this movie the best it could be. Not just focusing on making the action sequences kick ass. It was first and foremost about character, because as you said, nobody cares about the action if you're not interested in the character's journey. So we really wanted to, work hard to develop Nadu as somebody that we understood and wanted to follow her journey. It was there in the script, but we did obviously, do some things editorially to help in that regard. But we did we had the big action sequences, but then we also did take our time with the more emotional and intimate scenes, because if there are times when I feel that the big action sequences can overwhelm you. It's just a wall of sound. It's frenetic pacing. There's a lot of music. There's a lot of sound design. So when we could be quiet and have those moments with just our characters in the woods, and the woods, the forest is a character in itself, which we find in this film really. Those were really important from a pacing standpoint to kind of reset us. And they also did help create tension sometimes too, those quieter moments. But when Nadu is at the river and she's mourning her brother, those were really, really special moments. We wanted to take our time with those, and yeah. So Dan deserves all the credit for really, really exploring all the variations on
Yeah, but it's just thinking about how there were a few instances where post Tabe's death and also when Tabe comes back, and there used to be a big speech there that he's giving to everyone, and it became a more sound design musical sequence that became much more emotional than any words could have expressed. That's an idea that we're like, maybe we try this. And I've often been in rooms on other projects where you have an idea and the editor sort of tries something and it doesn't work, and then you give up on it. But Angela's very also tuned into all the faculties of cinema, of sound design, score, all that stuff, and really dug in, found the right beats, but also presented it in a way where it feels like, oh, this works, this is an idea. And it could have died if she hadn't really been awesome at her job. So
If you tell me you want to try a scene without dialogue, I'm so in. Like, that is my favorite exercise ever. So yeah, I'm sign me up.
I'm noticing a theme here. the next
words.
like the next praise, whatever it's gonna be called. It's gonna be no fucking dialogue. We're gonna go 1,200 years back into the past. Alec, I want to talk to you about the creature, about this version of Predator. He's massive, but he's massive in a different way than I think I'm always thinking of the OG Predator, who was like 7'8" and shit like that. Just when Dan came to you and when the project became real, what was your first step in sort of building out with this? I mean, the gadgets he has are amazing. Just how'd you build this guy out?
Well, I always like to
Actually,
watch.
you know what? Let me check myself real quick. The Predator is not necessarily coded male. So how did you build this thing out? Let me say this thing out. How did you build this thing called the Predator out?
Well, I love watching Dan when people give him credit for things because he deflects all the time. So let's watch this. Dan is a wonderful collaborator because he'll set up parameters for you to work within, and he is very much open to options and trying different things. But then he'll say certain key phrases, like for me in designing this, like as opposed to the original Predator, which I worked on, by the way. I don't know if anybody is aware of that.
I did not know that.
there's not a lot of movies we could mention that you couldn't say, yeah, I worked on that actually. So
Yeah, no, I'm going to rattle off my entire resume and just give you time, because there were drinks in the green room. But Dan
talking
said,
about how good I was at directing.
Yeah, you want to finish? You can finish. Everything flipped for me when Dan said, I want this to feel like a horror character. And we had a conversation about it that the first Predator was so effective because you didn't know what was under that mask. And when it was unveiled and Arnold says, "You're one ugly motherfucker," right? That was a freak fest, right, at the time. But we've become so familiar with these because we've gone down the road with a lot of different, Predator movies, most of which I've also worked on. I won't mention all of them. So the goal was to sort of create the same effect that that the viewer had when the first movie came out, without being the look of the first movie. And I said to Dan, we're going to piss off a lot of fans. And we all kind of just said, let's do it. Because the idea here is that this Predator is related to other Predators. We just sort of feel like the Predator world has a ton of diversity, so why don't we explore that? And
Pause. The fucking Predator world has a ton of diversity. And so they felt okay. They felt their responsibility to make this Predator from Watts and not from Beverly Hills the way the original Predator is from. I love this shit. This movie just gets better and better. I'm sorry. Continue.
well, I have to say, when I worked on the first movie, did I mention that? When I worked on the first movie, my boss was Stan Winston, the great Stan Winston, if all of you remember. And we kind of looked at it and go like, why does the bad guy have dreadlocks, right? And we talked about that, and we said, well, yeah, they shouldn't just be dreadlocks. That's bad. Let's make them like tubey things that are maybe censor, whatever they are, right? So in this film, we kind of looked at all of those elements again and decided to make our changes judiciously but effectively, and Dan was a great guide for that whole process of what we wanted to do was to push his technology backwards 300 years so that he wasn't using energy weapons, for instance. He's using actual, basically
Projectiles.
Arrows, projectile. He's got some of his trademark things like the 3 laser sights, things like that. But most of his weapons are a little more physical and brutal. And that was a blast to explore all of that stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm thinking about, so I got slapped on the wrist. I didn't live tweet the film when it came out, but I was tweeting about it as I was watching it. Lulu would get up to like go to the bathroom and send off a few tweets, and I got a little chastised about it. But
I normally hate, I'm sure you do too, but the greatest night of my life.
I was riding the wave, man. I was like, she's so badass,
So
man.
great.
And then the fight scenes are staged so beautifully and so thoughtfully. And watching the film again, and then watching the OG film, the Predator's like a big dude. And I guess it was 84, 86, 87 was the one with Schwarzenegger. They're all big dudes with big weapons, which because in the 1980s, it was all about big dudes with big weapons. I think now we're in a different place. And I love that this big dude, the counter to that are these people who are just so agile, so skilled, so talented, and so in communion with their environment that they become, I mean, the way the characters stand up to the Predator in this film, it's so damn plausible. It makes more sense to me than Arnold smacking the Predator and it actually turning his head. But no shade to Mr. Schwarzenegger. I don't want to get them calls. So as you were building this and setting it amongst the Comanche, and Jane, maybe you can speak to this as well. I read an interview where you were talking about the fight choreography and wanting it to be hyper realistic and wanting to be able to hold the frame and not be able to have to cut to every single piece of the action. I think you did a great job, but the choreography must have been so impossible to come up with. Did you guys research actual hunting styles, fighting styles of the Comanche, and then how did you blend that with the creature work that Alan did on the model?
Yeah, there was some of that. I mean, you can actually speak to the whole training process. So we kept on referring to the Comanche as like the SEAL Team 6 of the 1700s, and wanting to find a way that they can. Jeff and I often reference, and visually and in conversation, Sicario, especially the opening scene of Sicario, when the way those people move, you just believe that they are badasses. And I wanted to make sure we found our way into that, so audience could feel that way about these guys, but also have there be some authenticity. So Amber spent, the first, a month or so of prep was in a boot camp with all the guys, training weapons and all that stuff. Then with the choreography, the challenge, especially of her sequence, her taking down the fur trappers, was my other great love is Hong Kong action movies, and I've been dying to make. I referenced Jackie Chan. And
the amount of Jackie Chan YouTube
which is like
clips
no one sees that. I don't
that
think
he sent me.
Yeah.
Just so many.
Yeah. And it was hard, and because there can't be any actual stuff from those movies in her fighting style. So it was like, how do we make it feel like it's legitimate, what she's doing feels right, but it also feel thrilling, and she's doing something that's up against impossible odds. So that sequence for me was very much about her reaction. So she's using their weapons against them. She's using their knives. When she needs one, she takes one out of someone and puts it in the other guy, and then she needs it again. Like, it's all, which was, the shot wasn't always going to be a oneer, because I thought that her reactionary, because the sequence was so hinged on her reactions to what's happening, I thought we needed to have it be told through cuts. And then we were running out of time, and
Dan is speaking specifically about the scene after the Predator and the smoke, and Amber comes in, and the guy comes over, and it's like, the camera's going left, it's going right.
Yes.
It's like pretty late in the film. Just wanted to make sure everybody knows.
And we had to do it all in one shot. There's the only way we could get it all done. We'd never get all the coverage and choreography in one day. But I think we found a way that for the camera to move the way that Nadu moves. Like, it doesn't feel like a showboaty one. It's not like, oh, look at the crazy things the camera's doing, but you're just barely catching the things that the camera needs to catch. And it also was made in a way that we could hide cuts, because it was a blend of lots of takes. And all of that made the sequence, I think, super special, so that when it ends with her catching that tomahawk,
They clapped.
Thank you. That's like what it,
I was logging all the applause throughout the screening, so thank you guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to give Dan a full report afterwards, all right?
But yeah, it really builds to a crescendo. But it was very challenging to find the way in which she can fight that could be specific to her and this movie, and also feel authentic and also be thrilling. Yeah.
But representation, it's a very loaded word, and typically the first wave of representation is a very serious piece, you know? So we have to make this work that honors, you know, our ancestors in the most honorable way. We don't think of genre in that way, and yet somehow the six of you here, and I'm sure a whole bunch of people back home, found a way through genre to create one of the most beautiful, and I believe, just like worthwhile, worthy, just wholesome ways to honor our ancestors, your ancestors, the original people who populated this continent. That's a lot of weight to carry on your shoulders, young lady. How do you feel having done this film, and what do you think of the journey ahead?
Well, okay, to be honest, when I did find out that this was a Predator film, my immediate reaction was to burst out into tears. Not of excitement, purely of anxiety. My manager, who is here, called me and he was like, this is a Predator movie. And I was shooting something at lunch and I just started crying. And I went to my trailer and I cried all lunch. I didn't eat. I was so hungry and I was so scared. But it's true. Very brave up there, a little more anxious down here. But no, I mean, because I think I didn't really have like a reason. I was really confused at my reaction, to be honest. And I think it was just understanding then, like, having all the pieces put together and understanding it and knowing what the possibility could be, that it could be, you know, what truly it has become for representation and for our people, you know, I mean, but then also having that at stake, you know, and having that be like, obviously it's a shared responsibility, but, you know, being an Indigenous person telling a story like this, there is, you know, you feel it in a different way. When you have skin in the game, it affects you differently. So I think I felt that all at once, but also, I mean, it was exciting, and I think it's important to have movies like this that are like genre or that are comedy or whatever else they are besides just, you know, really straight drama historical pieces, because one of the most important things about representation is that we are not a monolith. You know, it's like normally, you know, I think Native characters or Native stories are often boiled down into being either like hyper spiritual or like really stoic savage, and neither of those are correct for us now or even historically. And so to have a movie like this where we're afforded not just a look at history in a way that's more accurate, where you get to say, oh look, they had a lot of cool invention. You know, like one of our earliest conversations, and I know a lot of your conversations with Jane were about like, how did you brush your hair? How did you brush your teeth? What was the daily life like? And to be able to get to show that in a movie like this is an amazing opportunity. And also to get to have a lot of different personalities where you say like, oh, this person's a little softer, this person has this skill, these relationships are, you know, XYZ, because that's how it's always been. We've always been full people. We are still full people with our own personalities, with our own interests and you know, hearts and backgrounds. And to get to show that, not, you know, in history and in present day, I think is an incredible part of the representation of this movie, on top of having the first, you know, like Indigenous heroine ever, which has been huge for our people, you know, and what we're doing in film also.
Normally, I would, yes, please. Normally, I would conclude there, but I have to bring it to you because this movie wouldn't be possible without you, and there's also a lot of weight on your shoulders. You mentioned the word possibility. This could have possibly gone a whole lot of different ways. It really could have, and you know what I'm talking about, and we've all seen those films. We've all gone into those films with hope and come out of them with disillusionment. Did not have that experience with this film. So man, why did you do this? No, why did you do it as thoughtfully, as carefully? Like, what you could have done it so many different ways. And you said earlier, what is a guy who won a best picture like Moonlight? Because look at all the shit you did in here. There's so many details. The simplest one, the movie opens and there's a bug, and then the rat eats the bug, and then the snake eats the rat, and then the predator eats the snake. That is just fucking That is the story of this world 101. Like, why did you? But then you also were thoughtful enough to empower these two women in particular. Just like, why did you do it, bro? And I'm asking you because there are a lot of young filmmakers in the audience. There are a lot of seasoned filmmakers in the audience. And I think it's great for us to see examples of active allyship, which is what I'm placing that label on you, my friend, and making this film. But also, too, if you don't hear someone explain how and why they did something, maybe it can be harder to see how you can also do it. So I'm sorry to put you on the spot, bro, but why and how did you do this?
Well,
and thank you for doing it, let me say.
Yeah, thank you for saying kind words. There's probably a million ways to answer this, and they're not as in there's a million reasons why. One was because it would be a great movie, and in that because you're seeing. I love when I see things that I've never seen before, and I'm constantly chasing that exact thing in any genre and anything. Like, well, what doesn't exist yet? And sadly, this hadn't existed yet. So certainly that's one part of the thing. The other is wanting to make a movie that does good. Even just I've had great genre experiences at movies. Some of my favorite movies just exist without any sort of message. But the thing that drives me is when there's a little bit of medicine in the ice cream, or just making something that I get to walk away with. So even. Not just obviously all the representation stuff that everyone's spoken to, but also for people that identify more with Amber, her character, than they would, like me, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I do not relate. Arnold Schwarzenegger is wish fulfillment. Amber is, I relate to that, and empowering for anyone who feels like they're up against it and feels like they're capable of more than what people are witnessing. And that leads to having it be the predator as the antagonist. There was a moment when this movie the Fox Disney acquisition happened, and the movie was maybe not going to happen. Everyone really loved the script, and my reps were like, maybe we should take this somewhere else. It's a great script. Like, we could just make it a different creature. And I was like, yeah, but the thing that's so rad is that it is the predator, the thing that goes to a place looking for who is the alpha, and doesn't see her as it. And is this the movie is better because it's that, and the Predator movie is better because it's this. Like, it all just was so much more intense. The potential for an intense movie-going experience that also can empower a whole variety of people. And I think that, not to get a little soapboxy, but progress is made when we become friends with people. Progress happened when we became friends with Ellen, when we became friends with the Huxtables. I don't even know if I can say that anymore these days, but
But back then in context, you can say it.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. I know what you're saying.
And so that now people are friends.
We are not going to cancel Dan Trachtenberg. We are not going to cancel Dan Trachtenberg. We know what he was saying.
And we all became, now people are friends with Amber. And there were a lot of people that were super skeptical. And the movie really proves that thought that they had wrong, and now they've got a hero and a buddy.
I have to say something.
Yes,
Dan is truly the actual picture of allyship. Going through this movie, I was terrified, right, because of all the things I said, and also it was not in the hands of an indigenous it was not in the hands of an indigenous director or an indigenous writer originally, and that is scary, to be honest. But the thing is, when you walk into something with somebody who is not just an incredible artist, but who is also a kind and thoughtful person, and who asks questions, and who gives everybody a voice, and who genuinely wants to learn for the film, but also just out of curiosity and out of life and history, that is the most wonderful thing that you could walk into as a filmmaker, as an actress, as a person of color, whatever it is. And that, I mean that with my whole heart, is truly he is the picture of a good ally.
Wow. That said, if you are French, you are not happy with Dan Trachtenberg. This is the cast and crew of Prey. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
By the way, this is an FYC event. It's for your consideration. If you thought the movie considerable, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend, and vote for Prey. I said it. Hot damn it.
Thanks.
All right, everyone, that's a wrap on Prey. What did you think of The panel, it was amazing, right? I didn't really get to film much of the reception because it was a madhouse inside the lobby. It wasn't in the parking lot like the other ones were. Don't forget to like and share and subscribe and follow me on the social medias. Thanks for watching. I am out of here.